climate lens then is to provide the infrastructure and the support system across the capital markets in order to promote issuance of products, but also to support capital market stakeholders. And that's really where most people have put in a lot of their effort. But the program is really supposed to look at three key actors in the market. So on one hand, we have the issuers, we have investors, and then we have the actors, market actors, who are really supposed to come in and support these issuances. So if I, for example, take the Acorn Green Bond, which was the first green bond issuance in Kenya. First of all, we need to first have issuers in the market. And what that speaks to is then have issuers in the market. And what that speaks to is then, do we have a deep pool of bankable projects that can actually be taken to market? And to Mr. Emmanuel's point here is that we need to look at what our pain points are and create viable products out of them. A lot of there's a theme can be brought to the market at scale. We've been working very closely with capital markets work that sometimes it can be deemed a very complex journey, and they need to understand all the risks that are involved and what support can be provided through the capital markets. So one of the key interventions we are really looking to do for the issuers is to provide technical assistance. And technical assistance comes in the form of coming up with the green bond frameworks, for example, because that's the first point of contact. So do the companies have a viable green bond framework on which they can then go out to issue products? There are other costs that are also involved. For example, you need to pay your transaction advisors, you need to get your green certification, you need to get, for example, if you're going to incorporate guarantees, all of these come at a cost. And I think the DFI community and the government as well needs to come and step in and say, how do we speak about lazy pension assets, and it's true. Our pension assets currently sit at 2.23 trillion. It's sitting at about 5 trillion Kenya shillings, and all of these can, if we could even channel 5% or 1% of these funds to sustainable finance, sustainability-linked products, then that would really accelerate the flow of capital.
Thank you, Gift. I want to...
Of identification, because we work at the grassroots level, where we are looking even at nano enterprises, small and medium, and now try and scale them to become more bankable. And over like the past 12 years that KCIC has existed, we've worked with close to 3,500 understand. So things that as KCIC we are doing, financial institutions, whether they are SACCOs, microfinance, whether they are banks, to try and now also build their capacity in terms of what are the risks that are there within the climate enterprises. Then also looking in terms of research and innovation. You'll find that as an organization, we work with a number of SMEs, but if you look across Kenya, and as he has mentioned, there's now ESG reporting that is required for mainly most of the corporate organizations. But they also lack the need in terms of research, innovation, low value nodes, or value chains, because maybe what they've been seeing is maybe I want to do, for example, a posho mill, to just do maize meal or cassava flour and all that. But then can we move them to now more higher value products and other innovations? So for example, now there's e-mobility, he has talked about it. Can we then start talking about assembly in Kenya, in Kenya, for example? We are talking about
in the micro and small space, is that you need to grow that business. So definition of bankable, from your definition, yes, you might say they're not there, but SOMO has supported so far over 10,000 businesses by training them, and then we have financed over 1,000 businesses, and these businesses have received $2 million in capital. And we have seen that you start them on a small amount, if it's a micro enterprise, of maybe 50,000 Kenya shillings, it gets to a point where now they're partnering with different organizations. Even KCC is one of them, where you have markets. Next, we realized then they need access to finance. And the question then was, what kind of financing do they need? What blended models might we need to come up with to help their businesses? And so we helped them by helping them set up their books, because if a bank is going to look at a business, they'll start by asking them, where are your books? And maybe they don't know how to do it. So we gave them digital tools that allow them to keep their books of account in both English and Swahili. And now in the refugee camps, we have these digital tools in Somali language. And so then with that, they're able to start thinking of how would they present books to, we might see them just as a border or someone who's doing electric vehicle with an Uber with whichever of Drive Electric. So if they're using these electric vehicles, they'll need a form of financing. So what do we want to think about? How do we support such a business? And we realized you can blend maybe.
Francis, building up on what Catherine just talked about the realities of the African market, at Village Capital, we often use the term purpose-suited capital, which simply just means matching the right capital to the needs of the entrepreneur. Can you speak about how Raising Capital is thinking about this?
Because they're not sustainable. We cannot all create unicorns, number one. Number two, issuers. If you look, there is a funding gap of around $400 billion across Africa. On the climate side, we're talking of around $300 billion. Now, that's a huge, significant funding gap, yet the finances that are supposed to come in are already starting to complain that there is no, let me call it, good deal flow. The businesses are not investor ready, or they're not qualified for these transactions. So for me, it comes down to, for a business to actually be able to access capital, that business must be run effectively. And my saying, or our saying, is very simple. An investor-ready business is a very well-run business, whether it's an MSME, whether it's an SME, or whether it's a unicorn that it's raising. We need to accept that Africa, the way our businesses are run, are different. But at the same time, we need to change it so that we stop having these businesses which are run and they sort of become non-existent when the individual either gets sick or is no longer their cycle of life. And I think the best way is, one, to consider what SOMO is doing. For us, what we are doing, for example, is we've noticed that 90% of businesses we engage in are SMEs or MSMEs. We've also created a platform that actually helps them match to investors, give them all this advisory, but in a far more affordable way that they can access it. So I just want us to accept that we are dealing with a climate issue, but at the same time, just like the same challenges we've been getting with the other businesses, we need to resolve them. KCS is doing a very good job in trying to make sure these businesses are prepared, they're ready, the ideas come to life, and then prepare them for the next round of funding. But if we do not do that, then the government may have the right policies, the listed market, the NSE may be ready to offtake them. The investors will continue being shy because they do not see the opportunities. And the owners, the entrepreneurs, the businesses will keep complaining that there is no funding, yet it's just now that the funding is there. It's not matching because the businesses themselves are not ready. Yep.
All right. Thank you for that. Catherine, I just have one follow-up question for you. You have the platform SOMO Invest. How do you think retail investors can participate as micro-investors through platforms like that? Because I think that's a really important conversation for us to have as we wrap up.
Yeah, I think SOMO Invest is an excellent platform. If you're able to get onto the SOMO website, somoafrica.org, there is a place where it's written invest. So what that means is that anyone in this room can go there and look at the different types of businesses that have been supported by SOMO. And you can select a business there and express interest in investing in it. So even myself, there are some businesses that we work with that I'm interested in, maybe because they're in items that I like. So anyone can go there, whether you have, I don't know how much, 10,000 shillings to invest or millions of shillings, it's a place to start. And I think we should all try such platforms. And I'm seeing some of our entrepreneurs here. And so I'm hoping that they can get investment from there.
All right, in the interest of time and because we started late, one parting shot from each panelist on how we mobilize African capital. One sentence, 1 minute. We can start with Emmanuel.
Thank you very much. So I'll go back to what I said during my opening remarks. We should copy and innovate. We're no longer in college or in school. It's not a crime to copy. The US, even though people say Donald Trump is not big on climate change, the US is making great progress in that area with their green banks. The green banks fund renewable energy projects. They get into agreements with the original equipment manufacturers so that people in that space can have access to equipment to expand their business. They give sub-market rates to money. They give money at sub-market rates to investors, to those who are implementing renewable energy projects. They also source funding from what they call ratepayers. So, for example, in Nigeria, electricity has been put in bands: band A, band B, band C. Those in band A have more access to electricity and they pay more. Part of that money, part of the charge could be made available to green banks, to fund green banks. We have talked about lazy capital. The pension funds can invest part of their money in green banks. Where the central bank can create incentives to enhance the development of green banks. It's only when you have these quasi-public-private sector type vehicle that you can expand access to funding for climate-resilient SMEs. We cannot wait for the FDBs. They're doing a great job, but they cannot do enough. You mentioned 50 billion, but you see we're not anywhere near there. So we can wait. Not everybody can have access to those type of funding, but if you make the vehicles available, you multiply them, they are in various communities and states like in the US, then many more SMEs can have access to funding at an affordable rate and expand their businesses. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So what we heard from you is copy and then contextualize. Gift?
I think for me, it's partnerships. I think climate change is a global problem. Climate financing equally is a global problem. So we can't all sit in our corners and try to solve for a universal challenge. We need to collaborate, come together. All the different actors that are required to have a seat on the table should be willing to come and have that conversation. So it's the capital markets, it's the accelerators, the incubators, the financiers, the DFI community, the guarantee providers, all the stakeholders that are required to bring issuance and awareness to climate financing need to speak to each other and come to the market to find viable solutions to drive forward the conversation.
Thank you, Gift. Ernest, one sentence, please.
I think for me, it will be about building capacity for Africa climate enterprises, build their investment readiness. Then we document some success stories, case studies, then create awareness in terms of what are the types of financing available, what instruments are there, and with that, then we should move the African enterprises to market.
Thank you so much. Francis?
Thank you. For me, I'd say is readiness, that the businesses, the entrepreneurs have to be ready to access this capital and also utilize the platform SOMO, our Capital Connect Africa, so that you can be able to efficiently prepare and be ready for the capital that will be coming in. Thank you.
For me, it would be, if you haven't invested as an individual, invest so that you can learn how to do it. And then for the rest of the actors, as you just mentioned, we all need to think collaboratively and think localized so that we can actually come up with solutions that make sense for our market.
Thank you so much to our panelists. I think when we started, Joseph did say we talk less and build more. What I got from this conversation is all 5 of you, together with the DFI, AFDB, should sit together in one room. Let's stop talking about collaborating and actually get it done. Now, help me in thanking our panelists today for joining us as they leave the stage. And we do believe that the future of Africa's green transition actually lies in our hands. So let's start to build, less talk, more building. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much to the panel for that insightful conversation. Let's have a quick photo opportunity there before we transition to the next session. Thank you very much. Appreciate it for that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that conversation, which was our second leg in the plenary. Remember, we started with a presentation from FSD Kenya. On to guide us on how we progress from here. So we want to have a very quick health break. Tea is served right behind here. So you will exit via this door and grab a cup of tea and coffee. Let's do that for about 20 minutes. We shall all converge, all of us, back here before we break out into our respective deal rooms. So please, breakout rooms rather. Let's make our way for tea. Meanwhile, there shall be a press conference in room 4. Room number 4, so all my friends and colleagues from the 4th estate, let's go to room 4 and have our presser. Meanwhile, the rest, let's have a refresher here and make our way back in 20 minutes. Thank you very much.